welcome everyone. Oscar, Zach, Lou, thank you for joining us today. It's a fun one for me. I've been a Formula One fan since 1996, so Montreal native, so this is when Jacques Villeneuve started in the sport. So very much like Oscar, took the sport by storm last few years, so excited to be here. These are exciting times for Formula One, but for McLaren Racing as well, right? So if you see how 2023 started in Bahrain, I think, Oscar, that was your first race, to then winning the 2024 championship and now leading both championships in 2025. It's really been an amazing comeback story over the last couple of years. Meanwhile, F1 is reshaping how fans are engaging with the sports, from the race themselves to digital media and storytelling as well. So jumping right in, Formula One now reaches over 827 million fans across the world. One of three of those fans are new to the sports in the last 4 years. A larger female demographic as well as joining the sports, and we're actually, and we've seen through some of our Nexxen discovery data also that they're more likely to engage with the content online, which is very interesting to see. So this new audience is engaged with the sports in a diverse way. Your viewership used to be mostly linear on TV. Today we're seeing, of course, a lot of online streaming, on-demand streaming with shows like Drive to Survive, new F1 movie coming out, and of course, a lot of social media engagement as well. I guess starting with you, Oscar, you became quite the online personnel over the last few years, you and many other young drivers joining the sport. How's that experience been for you, and how's the engagement with fans changed over the years?
It's definitely changed in the last few years. I think a few more people know who I am this year, which is quite nice, but it's just something, I guess, that I'm getting used to in life in general. But ultimately, it's very, very cool to see. I think when I first joined Formula One and joined McLaren, we were kind of the team that I feel like everyone wanted us to do well, but we couldn't quite do it. And through last year, we managed to start winning some races again. And now, everyone, instead of wanting us to do well, is just supporting us doing well. So it's been a really cool thing to see, and I think for me personally as well, the support I've had through my whole career, but especially through this season, which has been a great one so far, has been really special to have that support.
That's awesome. And Lou, you have a great brand ambassador in Oscar, right? So how is the marketing team evolving through that change in viewership and that engagement with the young drivers online and so on?
Well, we're really lucky to have two superstar drivers as a marketeer. They're absolutely dreamy to both work with, and obviously they resonate extremely well with the new audiences that are coming through the sport. So couldn't have it any better at the moment. But also, as you said, in 23, Oscar appeared on the scene relatively unknown, and just seeing that trajectory in his growth, obviously performance helps, there's no doubt about that, but also the drivers' personalities, the Netflix factor in how they've demystified the sport and actually opened up and humanized the brand, and that's something we're laser focused on. It helps, I think, also when we've got two awesome drivers that have the same levels of humility and respect that we do as a team. Right now it's just continuing doing what we're doing.
Awesome. And Zach, how has the business of Formula One evolved over the last few years? And why is F1 outpacing other major sports today? And what can they learn from Formula One and vice versa?
Well, good morning, everyone. We've learned a lot from other sports. I think that's one of the reasons why our sport's on fire, so to speak, at the moment. And I don't see anything that's going to stop that anytime soon. I think we've got the benefit of being a global sport, so our appeal is very, very broad in the amount of countries we race in and the amount of countries that follow our sport. We've got way more demand than supply, which is a great place to be in. There's more countries that want to host Grand Prix than we have on the schedule. All the various media rights owners are participating or want to participate in Formula One. Our corporate partner roster, I think in McLaren, is the best in all of sport when you look at the people that we're involved with, and a lot of them hadn't been following Formula One recently. And I think you got to start with Liberty, the acquisition of the sport 7-8 years ago. They saw that we have this massive fan base, But we as a sport never really concentrated on the fan. I think that's something that other sports have historically done much better than us. And then when you start letting Netflix in to our world so we can show our fans how the sport works, we're probably unique in that most other sports, I'm a fan of many sports, but I'm just interested in the field of play. And I think obviously that's what our sport is about, is a field of play. But there's a field of play that takes place off the track that is probably unlike any other sport, which creates a soap opera. Everyone likes a good soap opera, and the politics, and it's a big money sport and everything that goes on behind the scenes. So I think there were a few things the sport really needed to move forward in no particular order. From a geographic standpoint, it needed North America. It's the wealthiest sports and entertainment around the world, and we weren't where we needed to be. We are now, and still have a lot of room for growth. We needed women and more diversity, and we needed youth, and that is where the sport has evolved to. That's the new fan. So I think the demographics, the psychographics, the geography now is really well-rounded and kind of an audience for everyone. The sponsors have responded accordingly and have started to really come into our sport, especially on the consumer brand side, because we've historically been very B2B focused because of the kind of C-level activity that goes on. And so, the sport's in a great place. We need to keep doing what we're doing, and that is engaging with the fan, because it all starts with the fan. And if we can have very engaged fans, then everything else will kind of take care of itself.
Awesome. All right, so I'm a chief product officer at an advertising technology company, so let me geek out for a minute here and let's talk about data. Right, so I think that's one correlation I can see between the advertising space and a competitive sport like Formula One. We heavily rely on data at our company and many others to optimize campaign, optimize in real time. We're seeing that in Formula One with their cars constantly evolving. I guess, Oscar, it'd be great to go behind the scene a little bit, and maybe if you can walk us through a racing weekend, right? How are you leveraging telemetry before, during, and after the races to optimize your performance, and how are you working with your engineer and the team, throughout a weekend and throughout the year to continuously help improve the car?
Yeah, I think motorsport in general, but especially Formula One, is very unique in the sports world in that we can't actually practice outside of the race weekends. So we do a lot of work in simulators, which are very, very close to the real thing, and that's really where the preparation starts for each weekend. You go there, you try and replicate the real world as much as possible, and then that's where you experiment with your driving, essentially, and you see what works, what doesn't. And it's not always guaranteed that what works in the simulator will work in real life, but having those options available to you is what's important for me. So that's where it really starts, and then you're talking to the engineers about how you want the car to be set up. You look at a track like Canada, we've just been to, very bumpy, which is very different to somewhere like Spain. A great track, yes. Which is very different to somewhere like Spain, which is very smooth and much higher speed. So you're always talking with the engineers about that, and then when you get to the circuit, obviously you're kind of analysing your data. Lando and I have access to how each of us drive, the setups that we run, and you're always trying to compare with each other. And I think that is, for our team, quite a big strength, because we're both very evenly matched, but drive differently in some ways. And there's always things to learn from each other, and that's kind of what raises you to the next level. And we're constantly just trying to get more out of the car as well, looking at all the numbers. I don't do that part so much personally. I leave that to the engineers, but definitely when it comes to driving and how to get hundredths of a second, tenths of a second out of each corner, then that's where I really work hard with the engineers, looking at a bunch of squiggly lines on a computer, basically.
Yeah, awesome. And Zach, the car's evolved a ton over the last couple of years. Can you talk about that performance mindset in the team, and how are you driving that on and off the track?
Yeah, it's in our sport, it's just all about the smallest incremental gains. So a couple interesting data points. Our entire field is covered by 2%. So if you think about most sports or businesses out there, that's a pretty narrow window between the best to the worst. We change about 80% of our car over the course of the year. We have 300 sensors on the car, which pulls down about 1.5 terabytes of data a weekend, which I never knew what a terabyte was. So I said, put that in English for me. And that's about 10 million documents or 400 movies. So if you think about that quantity of data, we run 50 million simulations over a race weekend. Sometimes you wish you ran 50 million in one because you didn't run the one that played out, but you're constantly living in a state of simulation. So you have all this data coming in, but nothing beats kind of data, AI, and the human in the loop, because you still need to have that kind of racer instinct, that knowledge of how the race is playing out, that some data will give you, but can't give you all the answers. Then, of course, Lou uses data on the marketing side as far as engaging with fans. And now in today's digital age, we're able to customize, people like the sport because of the drivers or the technology or the cars or the politics or the locations. And so it enables us to understand that and be able to kind of serve up Formula One to our fans in a way that we know kind of matches their interest.
And I guess, Lou, you have many personas, right, when it comes to fans of Formula One, very diverse. And how does that culture of relentless improvement also impact the marketing team?
Well, it's a great problem to have. With all these new fans coming to the sport, there's an incredible opportunity. But the challenge is, how do you reach them? As Zak said, we now take that racing mindset across our commercial team through the content that we put out. And just as we put a car out on track, it's been tested a zillion times. We don't just want to throw content out there and hope that it lands and then sort of throw it at the wall. So we kind of take a racing analogy, actually, when we debrief, when we regroup after a campaign, we look at that 10% as Oscar would as he took the corner and go, well, that was already good, but how would you make it even better next time? Of course, we still celebrate it, and of course, you still need awesome creativity at the heart. But I think, for the scale now that we need to reach and that really different fan base, people have been with us for 60 years and will sit on a Sunday and watch 90 minutes of linear TV. We'll have other people who purely tuned in to the F1 premiere in New York this week and were just obsessed with what Lando was wearing on the red carpet.
Yeah, very different. So, modern sports brands succeed by blending performance, which obviously McLaren's has achieved, but with storytelling and values. So McLaren's no longer just a racing team. It's a brand with a voice, an identity, and always-on relationship with its fans. So, Oscar, you're brand ambassador for the team. You're here, you're doing these type of events. How are you balancing that with focusing on performance? And, how has that evolution been for you, being involved with the brand and, and your own personal brand as well, right? As, drivers, of course, are there for their team, but also are culturing their own brand.
Yeah, I think that was one of the kind of biggest differences when I joined Formula One is you probably do more work off the track than you do on the track. And I think I learned kind of the importance of that when I joined the team. It's definitely a learning process, and I think there's obviously a fine balance between the hard work that you do on the track and the hard work you do off the track, and you can't just have one without the other. But I think something we've worked really hard at in the last few years is how do we make that as efficient as possible for myself and Lando. And, ultimately we're racing drivers. We like to drive the cars, and the other stuff we don't mind, and the team try and make it as fun as possible, but we want to be focused on racing the cars and having as much energy as possible for that. So the team have worked really hard in the last couple of seasons on how do we make things, incredibly valuable for the team? How do we still get our value from that? But how do we take up, or make the time that we take from Lando and Oscar as efficient as possible? And I think we do a good job of that. It's always an evolution, but we try and make it as fun as possible as well. And with backdrops like this, there's certainly worse places to be.
Yeah. I guess divide and conquer this week, right? Lando was in New York for
Exactly,
the F1 movie promotion. I think you got the better one of the two teams or whatever. Yeah. Lou, you're supporting Oscar through that journey, right? As he joined the sport a few years ago, to now being a regular race winner, part of a championship-winning team. How have the drivers and Oscar help you drive the story around the brand and unlock new partnerships opportunities?
as I said earlier, a marketing dream to work with. I don't know if you know, the latest fan survey, you came out on top.
Nice.
Number one with fans.
That's what happens when you start winning.
We haven't told him that before. We don't want his head to get too big, but I know it won't affect him because he's so down to earth. So all of that really, really helps, right? And of course, performance helps. But I think the other thing is, like, we've got to make sure that, as we sit here today as world champions, it's an incredible place to be. But McLaren weren't always that way. It took us 26 years to get back that title, and there's a lot of grit and hard work that's gone behind the scenes. And we had to build resilience in the brand. So just as we've got 2 rock stars up front, we want more and more silverware. The trophy cabinet's expanding a little bit. But actually what we've got to do is just create that authentic storytelling and resilience. So if one day you're not on the podium, right, we've still got something to talk about. We've still got something to stay current and in the fan world. So I think that's just something we're very mindful of. It's taken 7-8 years for the recreation of the brand and the comeback. And, it takes a lot of time, energy, and talent to do that. So we're very conscious of, keeping focused on that for the future.
I guess being on the podium helps, though.
It definitely helps.
So, Zak, where do sponsors fit in all this? And, how do the drivers help create that emotional connection with the brands and these sponsors?
I think, our sponsors have come a long way from, a logo slap on the race car. Now they're integrated inside our racing team, and we kind of have 2 different types of partners. Of course, they all make contributions to the team, which we need to go racing, so we couldn't go racing without them, but that's the obvious part that people see. The people part that more people see, because it's part of the storytelling, is if our B2B, our technology partners, they're integrated in the team. So whether it's a Workday helping us with our finance and our HR department, whether it's a Cisco around our communications, whether it's Dell when we put in our new wind tunnel, so they're integrated and we're using their technology, and our racing team and our technology partners enjoy working with McLaren because we give them challenges. Sometimes we can use their product and take it off the shelf. Other times we go to them with just we have this issue, can you help us solve it? It's something we do a lot with Google, with how much they're constantly innovating. So that's the kind of the whole B2B technology space and the contribution they make to making us a better run organization, or directly putting making our race car faster, our wind tunnel operate quicker, et cetera. Then we have our consumer brands, the MasterCards, the OKX, the Jack Daniels of the world, that help us engage with our fans, help bring in new fans. So they're talking to tens of millions and billions of consumers daily, and race fans in particular, because I think sponsorship has been grown up around motor racing. You recognize the car because of what it looks like. So sometimes when you've seen some new sponsorship innovations in other sports, it doesn't necessarily always land well because they're kind of messing with tradition, if you'd like, where sponsorship in Formula One and motor racing, that is part of the tradition. So anytime we can lean into our consumer partners and activate the Hiltons of the world and help give us further engagement with our fans is awesome and adds a tremendous amount of value. Coming to the drivers, they're obviously the superstars of our sport, but so are our engineers and our team principals. So it depends what our, who our partner is and what they're trying to do, where we've done TV spots that of course include the drivers, but other times that include our HR department or our finance or our engineers. And so today's day and age about corporate partnerships is all about storytelling. And so there's a lot of integration that our partners have inside of our racing team.
Great. Just following up with you, let's talk about what's next, right? So that's a question I'm personally curious about. We're in 2025, you're leading both championships. 2026 is a regulation change year. So of course you have to focus on building that new platform, that new car, but at the same time need to remain competitive this year and continue winning. maybe it's a bit easier for teams that are lagging behind that can now focus on next year a little bit more. Can you talk about that balance and how you're managing that?
It's a tricky one for us being at the front, because you have some teams that don't have a chance this year, so they're just not even, they're trying, but they're putting all their development into the 26 car, where we're trying to compete, as you said, for both championships. So we're trying to figure out how much development does this car need. But every dollar that we spend on this year's car is a dollar we're not spending on next year's car. So there will be many that have more resources in their 26 car than we have, but we want to win the 25 championships before we worry about the 26. So you do have to publish your upgrades, so we will get a sense of when other teams stop developing. We'll stop developing sooner rather than later this season, especially because the car from this season, there's no carryover to next year's car, where this year's car was a carryover from 24. There was development, but there's a lot of learnings that you can carry on with you. 26 is a clean start, so that's exciting and terrifying at the same time, because no one has a baseline. No one has any reference points to what the car should be like, and it's a pretty radical change. But I think McLaren's proven we've got a lot of smart men and women at McLaren. We've got all the resources that we need, so I'm confident we'll put a very fast car on the racing track. And but it'll be exciting in 26. It's always exciting. Then you have some new teams coming into the sport. So I think, as I mentioned at the start, I don't really see any headwinds for our sport other than things that are going on around the world that are out of our control.
Yeah, that first race in new regulation is always super interesting for fans, right? A lot of unknowns, and it'll be interesting to see where the chips fall next year. Oscar, looking forward this year and next, of course, 25 Drivers' Championship, I'm sure, is a target for you. Can you talk a little bit about your objectives and the near future, both on and off the track?
I think on the track it's pretty straightforward, really. Try and win as many races as possible and win a championship. I think off the track, at this point of the year, I'm not too focused on, really. There's a lot going on. We're in the middle of the year, but I think just trying to do the same things we've been doing. The team have done a great job of giving me a car capable of fighting for wins, and I feel like I've taken a step forward from where I have been the last couple of years. So just trying to keep doing what we're doing, trying to find those little bits of performance that we can, and that's really all I'm focused on at the moment. So just try and keep that going.
Are you involved in development of next year's cars as well while you're managing this year?
A little bit. We've done a couple of runs in the simulator already, trying to kind of help out the team for next year and also help out Mercedes, who build our engines, because that's a major change next year in how the engines work and how the power is going to be used. So that's something we need to get our heads around, because it's going to be unlike anything I've ever driven before. So we're starting with that, but until the car really gets to its kind of launch spec, there's not too much use for me at the moment. I can pretty much tell you if it's good or bad. I can't get into the finer details, but at the moment there's still a lot of development going on in that. So until we get a bit closer to where we want our target to be, then I'll keep focusing on this year.
Awesome. And Lou, where's marketing headed 2025 and beyond? What platform formats and strategies is the team focused on?
So we're already working on 26 and beyond, to be honest, because we can't stand still either. We've got to keep up the pace. It's just as competitive off track as it is on it. And now is really the opportunity to seize the incredible performance that we've seen on track. I think within the marketing world, thankfully, I'm not constrained by the cost cap. So I'm sometimes the chief spending officer, which is a nice place to be. We're very lucky to have an incredible partner portfolio that can afford us that opportunity and are with us on the journey. I think, there's an incredible stat. Only 1% of that huge fan base actually ever get to go to track in their lifetime. So I think for our focus going forward, it's, we really look at how we can be more inclusive. How can we take that opportunity to engage with our brand in a more meaningful way? Obviously, social does a huge amount, but we want those deeper connections, right? So we're really excited, actually. Just under 2 weeks, we're turning Trafalgar Square papaya for our first ever London takeover in McLaren Racing London Live. Right now, we have those iconic red London buses have been wrapped in papaya and are making their way around London as I speak. We'll be taking... Thank you. So this is a first new format for us. It's an entirely free ticketed event in the run-up to the British Grand Prix, and hopefully we'll see more of that in the future. That's definitely where my focus is.
What makes Formula One very different is you're covering a lot of markets, right, and a lot of geography. Like, can you talk a little bit about how each markets differ? Like North America, I think a lot of a newer audience, younger audience has joined the sport recently. And do you have a different strategy per market?
Well, the geography is fantastic, but it also, poses back that challenge. If you're in Europe, the race has just finished, and you're working up in the US, spoiler alert, you may not want to know the result before you've watched it. So that's where kind of our real-time technologies are really important, so that you can make sure you're delivering that content in real time. As the calendar plays out, you'll have the more kind of technical, hardcore races like Spa, would you say, Oscar? Where people show up that are the long-time racers, right through to the Las Vegases of the world, which might take a little bit more of a entertainment skew, certainly for the fan base and audience are there. But I think the point is there's something in there for everyone, whether you've been with us 60 years or 6 months. So we can play on that and make the most of it when we travel.
That's great. It's a bit of a fun question. Of course, you guys are very focused on motor racing. What is your number one hobby outside of motorsport?
At the moment, playing paddle. I've just been invited by George Russell about half an hour ago, actually, so I'm going to try and beat him on Saturday. That's about it. I mean, for me, before motorsport became my job, which I say very loosely because it's a pretty cool job, let's be honest, but before it became my profession, it was my hobby, and it still is in some ways. So I always enjoy it. Even when I'm not in a Formula One car, I have a simulator at home, and I just enjoy racing. So I drive that. But also for me, it's very important outside of racing and traveling. We're on the road for nearly 9 months of the year. So just becoming a normal human in that time off. So, spending time watching TV, watching whatever, spending time with the people you love around you, that's what's important to me. And in some ways, having too many hobbies takes away from those little things in life. So I enjoy race cars, I enjoy doing nothing in between and spending that with the people I love. So that's pretty much me.
Yeah, you guys travel a ton. I mean, I'm still jet lagged here. I can't imagine how you guys are managing that and going from one place to the next and managing your time. It's pretty crazy. I guess just Zach, to close us out, so what are you most excited about next year?
Next year?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I know about this year.
Yeah. First, I want to get this year done and kind of seal the deal.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of racing to go. So the Constructors' Championship, we've got a healthy lead, but the Drivers' Championship isn't as healthy as we'd all like it to be. Fortunately, we're 1-2, but I think Max isn't far away, and with the pace of Mercedes and Russell, I think you still have a four-way battle for the Drivers' Championship. So we need to stay focused on that. But for 26, excited to see the new car, the new regulations, kind of the next era of Formula One. We also have some stuff off track coming. Lou's put together a new state-of-the-art hospitality unit. So excited to see what that looks like, because that's going to integrate a lot of our partners' technology and have a way of bringing our partners closer to things like our race debriefs. It's pretty fascinating listening to Oscar and Lando and the engineers talk about what they're going to do next session. So we're going to be able to open that up to our partners as they can be sitting in as if they were sitting next to Oscar and Lando in the debrief. So excited for on track and off track. And we also have an IndyCar team. We're second and fourth in the championship there right now. We've finished second at the Indy 500 3 of the last 4 years, so I'd like to see us win that. And then we announced at Le Mans last week we're coming back to Le Mans in 2027. So that car is fully under development, and then that'll be, we're the only team to have ever won the Triple Crown, which is Monaco, Le Mans, and Indy, and would love to do that again. That makes us unique, gives us a depth and breadth of racing portfolio that's unique for our partners and for our fans, and seeing that all come together where we're very competitive in Formula One, we're very competitive in IndyCar. I anticipate us being very competitive in the World Endurance Championship, and that's growing up what I remember of McLaren, and feels like we're getting back there, so that's quite exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.